Hi, this is Zibby Owens, and you're listening to Totally Booked with Zibby, formerly Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. In my daily show, I interview today's latest best-selling, buzziest, or underrated authors and story creators whose work I think is worth your time. As a bookstore owner, publisher, author, and obviously podcaster, I get a comprehensive look at everything that's coming out and spend my time curating the best books so you don't have to. Stay in the know, get insider insights, and connect with guests like I do every single day. For more information, go to zibbymedia.com and follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens. Jill Santopolo is the author of The Love We Found. She has been on this podcast, I think, 2 other times for her previous books, and this book is a Zibby's book club pick. Jill Santopolo is the New York Times and internationally best-selling author of Stars in an Italian Sky, More Than Words, Everything After, and The Light We Lost, which was also a Reese's book club pick. Her work has been translated into more than 35 languages and has appeared on the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Apple, Amazon, and IndieBound bestseller lists. She received a BA from Columbia University and an MFA from the Vermont College of Fine Arts. She is also the author of 3 successful children's and young adult series and works as the publisher of Philomel Books. Jill travels the world to speak about writing and storytelling. She lives in New York City with her family. Welcome, Jill. So excited to have you back to discuss The Love We Found, the sequel to The Light We Lost, which was one of my favorites of all time. Congratulations. So exciting.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I love talking to you about books.
Oh. Okay, back up. For anyone who hasn't read The Light We Lost, give a 1 sentence about that, and then talk about The Love We Found and how you sort of structured this and came to write the sequel at all.
Okay, so The Light We Lost is the story of Lucy, who on September 11th, 2001, is finishing up college at Columbia University. And on that day, she meets somebody named Gabe. And the two of them have an instant connection sort of forged in the crucible of that day. And the book follows the two of them for the next 13 years of their lives as they kind of weave in and out of each other's worlds. And Lucy figures out what she wants to do and who she wants to be. And so does Gabe. And that's sort of the story, I think, right?
Yeah. Okay. Great. So now fast forward, and here we are with your next book. First of all, why write the sequel at all? I know people were demanding it, but why did you decide, and what is this book generally about?
So I decided to write the sequel in part because a lot of people wanted to know what happened next, but also in part because I felt like I left them in a kind of broken place, particularly Lucy, and I wanted to create a story that would kind of heal her. I feel like the world has just been so broken in so many ways, and we all need a little bit of healing, and I wanted to put sort of that vibe out into the world. So the story this time around is we're back with Lucy. It's 10 years later. And I don't know how much I can say about this book without spoiling the first book for people who haven't read it. But do we feel like it came out 8 years ago? It's okay. I can spoiler something.
I think it's okay.
Okay. So it's 10 years later, and the Associated Press is going to do a retrospective on the work that Gabe had done. And Lucy now has all of his belongings. And inside the box, she finds an address that sends her sort of on a chase to look at more of Gabe's photography. And what she does when she goes on that journey, it sort of sets her on a path to healing and to unburdening herself of the secrets of the past and figuring out how she wants to live her future.
Okay, perfect. So this book, there are so many threads that I found so powerful. Loss, relationships, mothering, second chances, the connections that you make. I love photography. Like everything about it, there was something that you could find, that the reader could certainly find to relate to. Can I just read the first page of the book just to whet people's appetites? This is on the loss theme. Sometimes I wake up, and for a brief moment, you are alive, Gabe. In that blurry place between dreams and reality, you're smiling. Your arms are wrapped around me. You're saying, I love you, Lucy. I will love you until the day I die and then some. Just like you whispered to me when we went hiking in Cold Spring 2 decades ago. We'd climbed to the top of the Bull Hill Trail and were taking in the most breathtaking view of the Hudson River. Your whispered words, the reverence with which you said them, made me shiver, made me lean back, turn my head, and kiss you hard and deep, like I needed to show you that I'd love you until the day I died, and then some too. I forgot about those words for years, but they've come back to me recently. Come back to me in those liminal moments when I'm not quite asleep, but not quite awake. And then the sun brightens or the alarm goes off and it hits me. You're gone. I wonder, particularly on those days, about the and then some. Is there a piece of you somewhere that loves me still, or is it all in the past? Are we ancient history, and am I the archivist, keeping it alive? Oh, I don't know. How can you not want to read the book after you read that intro? I mean, it's like for anyone who has lost anyone ever, you have to wonder, what does that mean? Where does the love go? And that's sort of one of the themes of the whole story.
My 4-year-old daughter, actually, my stepfather recently passed away, and she has been asking all of these questions about sort of what happens and where people go. And one of the things she said to me, and it was after I wrote that scene in the book, was what happened to, she called him Babe, his name was David, but what happened to Babe's love? Like, where did it go? I was like, it's still here. It's still here. Like, no matter whether the person is still here or not, the way that they touched you and the way that they loved you is still here. So we've been thinking about that a lot recently, but
I'm sorry for your loss.
Oh, thank you.
I feel like I met him at the author's night. Wasn't he there?
Yes, you absolutely did.
Oh, yeah. I'm so sorry.
But I've been thinking about that for a long time, because I think so. My father passed away in 2015. So sort of when I was writing the first book, I was thinking a lot about what happens after death and what happens to the people who are left behind and how does that all play out. So it sort of is something I've been thinking about for a long time, but it really played, I think, into this book.
How is your mom?
She's strong, but she's going through it.
Oh, sorry. Well, back to the escapist thrill of the book, which offers the reader a very different experience where we're getting on a plane and we're, going through the streets in Italy and trying to find, a boy who, and I love how you have us follow him throughout, and the sort of wild goose chase that becomes the beginning of the launching pad for the rest of it. Mm-hmm. Take us through that and take us through your love of Italy, which I know you has been in past books as well.
So yeah, I just love traveling, and in all of my books, the characters travel somewhere, and Italy is a particularly special place to me and my family. It's where my father's family is from. It's where my husband's mother is from. So we have a ton of family there, and we visit them, and they're great. And they actually inspired my last book, Stars in Italian Sky, but that's a totally different podcast. But so for this one, I was really interested in what would Gabe have been covering right before he died in 2014 and 2013. He died in 2014, but what would he be covering in the end of 2013 and 2014? And there was a lot going on with the Syrian refugee crisis then. And one of the things that I find fascinating about Italy is the island of Lampedusa, which is this vacation. Everyone goes there in the summer, beautiful sailing, swimming, beach island. But it has become and has been, for decades now, the sort of gateway to Europe for a lot of refugees. And people come on boats, and they have on the island this. They call it the hotspot, but it's this Red Cross hotspot where people are coming in these boats that look like they could fall apart tomorrow, and are, getting sort of the intake in this space and on this island. And the islanders who I met who live there, are so involved, giving clothes, giving toys, helping, they're really part of this. There's this beautiful library that is a children's library, and it gives the children who come over a packet of books, and they have the largest, they call them silent books, but wordless picture books collection there, because you don't need to know any particular language to read those stories, which I think is super cool. But I kind of thought this is such a interesting place to feature and to visit and to sort of shine a light on in Italy. And it's not the typical place when you're reading about Italy where, you read about Rome and you read about Milan and Florence and Venice and all of these like really romantic, stereotypical, like the Italian places you go to, which I love also. But I thought this was a really interesting place to focus on because it's not one that people talk about a lot in fiction. I mean, it's in the news a lot, but it's not really fictionalized often. So I had a lot of fun in sort of researching it, but also going there and visiting and talking to the people and visiting the libraries and seeing the Red Cross Center and all of that.
Wow. Well, thank you for taking me there. I needed a trip, so that was great. Very cost effective. Not a lot of wear and tear. And you can just open the pages of your book and suddenly be there. So you have 3 different men in Lucy's life, right? We have Gabe, and the memory and the love, which never goes away. You have Darren, and then you have Dax, who's our new character in this book. Talk a little bit about Darren and Dax.
So Darren is the character that Lucy ends up marrying in the first book. And I, in this book, was one of the main things that I wanted to figure out is, okay, what happens 10 years later? What happened with that marriage? And any way that I sort of tried to spin the story in my head, I was like, it doesn't make it through. Like with the characters, the way I set them up, I just don't see how they could still be together 10 years later. But there are so many things about Darren that Lucy loved, that I loved. And I think the main one is what an amazing father he is. So I wanted to really be true to that in this book and try and keep their relationship one where Lucy finds a way to appreciate what she loved about him while also appreciating not being married to him in a way. Mm-hmm. So that was a sort of balance that I wanted to keep here. And then I wanted her to finally find love that seemed to fit in a way. And when I was writing The Light We Lost, when I created Gabe and I created Darren, I wanted to create men who were really perfect for her in one way, but like really not perfect for her in another way. And with Dax, I was like, I just want to find someone who's the right one for her, like in all the ways, someone who appreciates her for who she is and for what she wants to do and for, her quirks and her neuroses, but also for like all of the creativity and the light she wants to bring into the world. And that's sort of where I was going with Dax. And I think because Lucy has had pain and loss in her life that really defined who she became, I felt like the person who would be a match for her would also have experienced a different kind of pain and loss in his life, and that it would sort of shape them in the same way and bring them together.
I love that. Well, as we talked about when I saw you last time, there are some very spicy scenes in the book. And I was like, okay, Jill, look at you. Go. Like, you're like, get into it. Anyway.
I wanted that for Lucy.
You wanted that for,
spice in her life.
Yeah, Lucy needs it. I mean, come on. It's pretty awesome. And you perfectly show what it's like to have this kind of passion and these romps when you are a mom and you have custody days to contend with, and what that feels like to have this on one day and then have something that feels like so entirely different on the next. So much so that I remember asking you, like, wait, but you didn't get divorced, right? Like, where's this coming from? So talk about that and like the passion in the context of motherhood and custody and not midlife, because she's a little younger than that, but well, not really. I don't know. How old is Lucy in this book?
I think she's like 44, 40.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess you can, yeah. Anyway, talk about all that.
So I think, well, part of it is, I have a lot of friends who in the intervening 10 years, have gotten divorced. So there are a lot of conversations that I have with close friends of mine about the back and forth of custody and what that means to different people when they're not with their kids. So that sort of all went in here. But I also think that, like, as a mom who's not divorced, even so, like, there are moments where it's like, okay, doing a bath, brushing teeth, pajamas, like reading stories, and then like going into the bedroom and being like, okay, now like not a mom anymore. Like let's turn that off and turn something else on here. And now, it's not even a day to day, but it's like an hour to hour, minute to minute of like which pieces of you are going to be the ones that are taking the forefront. And I feel that too with like, am I an editor? Am I a writer? Am I a mom? Am I a wife? Am I a sister? Am I a daughter? Like, who am I in this moment in time? Because I am all of those things, but not necessarily all of them at once. And
Yes.
I think that that's something that Lucy sort of pulls from in this story, that there are moments where she is one thing more than the other, which doesn't mean she's not all of those things also.
I love that. Wait, talk a little bit about you and those different roles, particularly the professional roles, because you have your day job, which is super big and super important, and then you have your writing and everything else. So tell me about like, and how do you manage your time and toggle, and what is your day-to-day like as a publisher versus an author?
Yeah, toggling is hard. So yeah, I'm the publisher of Phil Mill Books, a children's book imprint at Penguin Random House. So right now, as I'm talking to you, I'm in my office at Penguin, and most of the hours of my day are spent doing this and working on picture books and novels with authors and artists and helping their visions get realized and out into the world, which I absolutely love doing. And then I would say like I get home from work probably a little before 6, around 6. And then like I am a full mom from like 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, let's say. And that's like dinner, bath, bed, packing lunch, going through the artwork in the backpack, all of that like fun stuff. And then a lot of times after that, there's a chunk of time where either I'm writing or I'm doing something writer related for like an hour and a half or something like that. And then after that, I'm talking to my husband, my poor husband, who's like the last thing I get at the end of the day. But when I was going to graduate school and editing 100 years ago, one of the things that I realized worked for me was compartmentalization. So it was like, okay, these are the hours in which I do this thing. And now I don't do this thing anymore. And I try and really put it out of my head so that I can focus on this other thing. Because if I don't do that and like give myself real parameters, then it's like trying to answer emails while packing lunch, and then the lunch doesn't get packed and the emails get mistakes, and I like it just makes me a little more chaotic than I typically am. So that's sort of what I try to do, is really just figure like, okay, these are the hours that I'm doing this, these are the hours that I'm doing this, these are the hours that I'm doing this. And even like, right now, even though technically I'm in my office, my email is turned off, my phone is over there. It's like I'm talking to you. And if I can focus on talking to you, then when I'm done, I'll go back and I'll answer all of the things that came in this time that we've been chatting.
Thank you for taking time out of work to do this.
Oh, no, I'm happy to.
I feel the same way, by the way. I'm like, I will be doing podcasting for these hours. Then I will not be doing podcasting. And then I will
Yeah.
read another time. Yeah. So you have to, I feel like living by the calendar is super important. Like this is when I've allocated this time. But
Yeah.
by the way, like I'm sure this must happen to you incessantly, because everywhere I go, someone tells me that they have an idea for a children's book or they've written a children's book. Right. And just yesterday this happened. And I was like, I think you should just self-publish your book and just like go hire an editor if you want, get a great cover and just like put it up. Just like put it up on a platform and sell it yourself, because this is not the time. Like there are just too many books, right? So what do you like? What do you do? Like there are like a bazillion people. Everybody has a children's book in them, basically.
There are a lot of people. I mean, there was an article recently that I contributed to for Publishers Weekly that was, what is the oddest place that someone pitched a children's book to you? And it was like they asked a whole bunch of children's book editors. And
what was your answer?
So, well, I had initially thought the oddest place was going to be when I was at a family friend's bridal shower and some random person who I didn't know heard what I did and then started pitching this book while we were at the bridal shower. But then what I ended up writing about was when people started pitching my father,
Oh
who
my
is an
gosh.
endodontist. So he was doing dental surgery on people's mouths. And they were like, oh, isn't your daughter a children's book editor? I have this idea. And then he would call me and be like, so this person in my chair today had this idea. Maybe it's the next Harry Potter. I'd be like, Dad's probably not the next Harry Potter, but like, okay, here's my email. Tell them they should, send me a note or whatever. So I feel like the proxy pitching was really an interesting development. Like,
Oh my gosh.
but I think I'm a huge fan of the SCBWI, the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. And I think that's usually the first thing I recommend to people who are interested in writing for children, because similarly to what a professor at college had said to me when people were talking about wanting to write, and she said, if you want to write, you have to read really widely in the area in which you're going to write so that you know what's there and you know what you can contribute. And you know, if you're breaking rules, that you are doing it consciously and for a reason, and otherwise that you know sort of what the parameters are. So I sort of feel that way about children's books too, where like if you join the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, you sort of have this space and conferences to learn. Like a picture book is 32 pages long. That's just like a thing because of the way they're made, right? So like there's that kind of stuff, which I think is important to know just going into any sort of writing endeavor, including and particularly children's books, because you may go out into the world and be like, oh, I'm looking for comp titles. Oh wait, somebody did this already, or like, oh, my book is 72 pages long and I want it for 3-year-olds. Like maybe that won't work, right? I mean, or maybe it will because you've consciously looked at the market and decided that this is a thing that you're going to do and break the rules for this reason. But I always feel like getting all of the basic knowledge first and then sort of figuring out like, oh yeah, this is actually something I want to pursue because I've done the research and I've learned all the things. I think the research and learning the things to me is like the first step.
Yes. It's like the art world, right? You have to learn, what are you saying that's contributing to this conversation? Like you don't just, a canvas is not a canvas. Anyway. Okay, so back to the love we found. So in the midst of all of the day-to-day and the love stories and this and that and, coming of middle age essentially for Lucy, there ends up being this sort of twist that you put in and revealing of a secret and all of this, which makes it even more propulsive as like, especially towards the end, how is this going to be handled and all of that. When you were drafting the book, how did you handle plotting, writing it? Like when did you know all of this to begin with, or did it come as you were just going?
I knew generally what was going to happen. Like I had written a sort of 2-page chatty synopsis of what was going to happen in general. And then when I started writing, it just sort of like the connective tissue built out.
Mm-hmm.
I was somewhere and I said that my process in writing plot is sort of like planning a road trip where you start first and you're just like, okay, I want to drive from New York to Los Angeles. And then you're like, okay, well, I want to drive from New York to Los Angeles and I want to stop in like these 3 cities along the way. Okay, now I want to stop in these 3 cities and go to these restaurants and stay in these hotels. And now I want to visit these museums and these. So like I start with that very bare bones thing and then I just kind of flesh it out as I go.
Well, this is now clear to me why I have trouble figuring out what to write, because I'm like, well, should I drive or should I fly? Should I take a train? Should I, like at the last minute, I'm like, well, wait, maybe I shouldn't fly from DC. Maybe I should, the weather's, I don't know. Maybe I'll take the train this time. Maybe I'll, so yeah, now my indecision it all makes sense now that you framed it that way. Thank you for that. Will there be another installment will this be a trilogy?
Never say never, but I feel like I left Lucy in a good spot. Like I'm happy with where she is now, and I don't feel like I need to open up her next chapter, really. I've always thought I would like to write the story for like a piece of the story from Darren's perspective. Because I feel like those intervening 10 years and even this piece of it like are really rough in a way for him. Like yeah. So that's sort of a space that I was thinking could be interesting if I were to expand the world. And I also feel like there are other characters in the book who are smaller characters who I would be interested in telling their stories too. But I don't know if that's really going to happen. I feel like Lucy's friend Julia, I'd be interested
Yep.
in her story. Kate, her brother Jay. Like I feel like they're characters who I really love and would love to give them some real page time, but no plans for that. No plans
Okay.
for that right now.
And I didn't even get into the kids and all of the subplots related to the kids and all of that. So anyway, loved this book so much. As you know, it's one of my book club picks. I think everybody will love it, regardless of whether or not they've read the first book. And I feel like it's such an immersive, emotional, escapist read. And it's kind of the antidote for all the heaviness of the world. So thank you for this.
You're welcome. And I hope it does put those healing vibes out into the world and sort of makes people at least feel good for the moment when they're reading it.
And you are so helpful with like running essentially Artists Against Anti-Semitism now, by the way. So thank you. What is your official role there?
I think I'm co-president of the board, technically.
Amazing.
But I do. We're trying to put more love and peace and connection into the world, and I hope that that's the direction that the whole world starts leaning.
Me too. Enough hate. I'm done with it.
Yeah, enough. Really enough.
Yes. Okay, Jill. Well, thank you so much. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
Yay. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Totally Booked with Zibby, formerly Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. If you loved the show, tell a friend, leave a review, follow me on Instagram @ZibbyOwens, and spread the word. Thanks so much. Oh, and buy the books.